Ethan Carter walked through the crowded streets of Zereth Prime, the massive alien city where humans were nothing more than workers, traders, or outcasts. The air smelled of burnt metal and fuel, and the neon lights above flickered against the dark sky. Towering structures loomed over the streets, casting long shadows on the people below. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most alien species saw them as weak, unimportant. But Ethan didn't care what they thought. He had been in this city for years, fixing broken machines, trading parts, and staying out of trouble. It wasn't much of a life, but it was better than being dead. Tonight, he found himself in the Rusted Fang, a dimly lit cantina filled with all sorts of creatures, some drinking, some whispering secrets, and some looking for trouble. Ethan just wanted a drink, maybe a quiet night. But fate had other plans. As he sat at the bar, his ears caught a hushed conversation from a nearby table. A group of aliens, their voices low but urgent, spoke in a language he barely understood. But he caught two important words: Ilari Princess. Ethan frowned. The Ilari were one of the most powerful civilizations in this part of the galaxy, advanced, noble, and nearly untouchable. What was a princess doing in a place like this? Curiosity got the better of him. He took his drink and casually moved closer to the table, pretending to check the old comm device on his wrist. The aliens didn't notice him. They were too busy talking. "The Dominion will execute her soon," one of them said. Ethan's eyes narrowed. The Dominion. He had heard of them. The brutal, war-loving empire that conquered planets and enslaved entire species. If they had an Ilari princess, it meant something big was happening. Another alien, a hooded figure with sharp claws, spoke in a nervous tone. "The reward for her is high, but saving her, that's madness. The Dominion would hunt down anyone who tries." Ethan took a slow sip of his drink, thinking, a princess locked away by the Dominion. Execution was coming, and no one dared to stop it. He should have ignored it. He should have walked away. But he didn't. Instead, he turned to the hooded alien and spoke. "Where is she?" The table went silent. The aliens looked up, their eyes filled with surprise and suspicion. A human asking about the princess. That was unexpected. "Who are you?" The hooded one asked, his voice sharp. "Just a guy who doesn't like the Dominion," Ethan said. That was mostly true. The alien studied him for a moment, then leaned closer. "You don't want to get involved. She's in Fortress Farkle. Heavily guarded, impossible to reach. Even if you get inside, you'll never get out." Ethan had heard of Fortress Farkle. It was one of the Dominion's high-security prisons, a place where no one escaped. But impossible wasn't a word he believed in. "What did she do?" Ethan asked. "She exists," another alien muttered. "The Dominion wants her gone. If the Ilari lose their last hair, their empire falls forever." Ethan exhaled slowly. So that was it. This wasn't just about one life. It was about an entire civilization. The Dominion wanted to erase the Ilari from history, and killing their princess was the final step. He thought about walking away. This wasn't his fight. But then he thought about Earth, about how humanity had once fought for its own survival in a galaxy that didn't care about them, about how the strong always crushed the weak unless someone fought back. Maybe it was foolish, maybe it was suicide, but Ethan had made up his mind. He set down his drink and looked at the hooded alien. "Who can get me inside?" The alien chuckled, shaking his head. "You really are crazy." Ethan just smirked. "I've been called worse." The hooded figure glanced around the room, making sure no one else was listening. Then he whispered, "There's only one way into Farkle, the Blood Circuit." Ethan's smirk faded. He had heard of the Blood Circuit, the Dominion's gladiator arena. Fighters battled for survival, and the winners earned access to the fortress as entertainment for the Dominion elites. Most contestants never made it out alive. "You fight," the alien continued. "You win, you get inside. But once you're in, you're on your own. Ethan considered it. The odds were against him, but odds had never stopped him before. He stood up, tossing a few credits on the table. "Tell me where to sign up." The alien grinned. "You're either very brave or very stupid." "Maybe both," Ethan said. As he walked out of the cantina, the cold night air hit his face. Somewhere inside Fortress Farkle, a princess waited for death. Not if he had anything to say about it. Humanity didn't bow to tyrants, and Ethan Carter wasn't about to start now. Ethan Carter moved quickly through the dark alleys of Zereth Prime, his mind racing with possibilities. The Blood Circuit. The only way into Fortress Farkle was to fight in the Dominion's brutal gladiator arena. It wasn't an easy choice, but he had already made up his mind. He needed help. Zereth Prime had its share of criminals, rebels, and those who hated the Exareth Dominion as much as he did. If anyone knew how to navigate this city's underworld, it was the Hidden Veil, a group of smugglers, spies, and ex-soldiers working in the shadows. Ethan had done small jobs for them before, fixing weapons, hacking security doors, but he had never asked for anything this big. He didn't know if they would help, but he had to try. The entrance to their hideout was beneath an abandoned scrapyard, hidden under layers of junk and rusted metal. Ethan knocked twice on a thick steel door, then once more. A small metal eye sensor flickered to life. "Who is it?" a robotic voice asked. "Ethan Carter," he said. "I need to see Juno Vex." A long silence. Then the door slid open. Inside, the hideout was dimly lit, filled with old computers, weapons, and crates of stolen goods. People moved around, fixing gear, discussing plans, or preparing for whatever war they were fighting. At the center of it all sat Juno Vex, a tall woman with short silver hair and a scar running across her cheek. She had once been a soldier, fighting against the Dominion, but now she was the leader of the Hidden Veil. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "Ethan Carter," she said, "what trouble have you brought me this time?" Ethan smirked. "Nothing too crazy. Just need to break into Fortress Farkle and rescue a princess." The room went silent. People stopped what they were doing and turned to look at him. Some laughed. Others shook their heads. Juno didn't laugh. She just raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" "As a plasma rifle in overload mode," Ethan said. Juno sighed. "Do you even know what you're getting into? That place is a death trap." "I know," Ethan said. "That's why I need your help." Juno studied him for a moment. "Why do you care about some alien princess?" Ethan hesitated. He could have said it was for money, or fame, or revenge. But the truth was simpler. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said. Juno scoffed. "The right thing gets people killed." "She's the last heir of the Ileri Empire," Ethan continued. "If she dies, her people are finished. The Dominion wants to erase them from history. Someone has to stop them." Juno drummed her fingers on the table. She didn't argue. She knew what the Dominion was capable of. Finally, she sighed. "You're a fool, Carter, but you're our kind of fool." Ethan grinned. "So you'll help?" Juno nodded. "We can't break you into Farkle, but we can get you into the Blood Circuit." One of her men, a burly reptilian alien named Drax, stepped forward. "I know a guy who runs the fights," he said. "We can get you in as a new competitor. But once you're inside, you're on your own." Ethan nodded. "That's all I need." Juno leaned forward. "The fights are brutal. The Dominion loves watching people suffer. If you die, no one will remember you." "Then I won't die," Ethan said. Juno smirked, cocky as ever. "All right, Carter, you have your way in. But if you survive and get to the princess, we'll have a ship waiting outside the fortress. We'll give you one shot at escaping. You miss it, and you're stuck in there forever." "Sounds fair," Ethan said. Juno shook her head. "No, it doesn't. But you're too stubborn to back out now." She handed him a small data chip. Your fight schedule. First match is tomorrow night. Get some rest. You'll need it. Ethan took the chip and slid it into his wrist device. He glanced at Juno one last time. Thanks. Don't thank me yet, she said. You're not dead. Yet. The next evening, Ethan stood in a dark tunnel beneath the blood circuit arena. The sound of roaring alien crowds shook the walls. He adjusted the rough leather armor they had given him and checked the shock baton strapped to his belt. Not much of a weapon, but it would have to do. The heavy steel gates in front of him groaned as they began to open. A deep mechanical voice boomed from the speakers above. Next challenger, Ethan Carter, the human. The crowd erupted into laughter. To them, he was just another weak human, another fighter who wouldn't last 5 minutes. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped into the arena. Bright lights shined down on him. Across from him stood a massive 4-armed brute, nearly 3 times his size, covered in thick, scaly armor. The creature grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. The announcer's voice echoed again. Let the fight begin. The brute roared and charged. Ethan smirked. Time to show the galaxy what a human could do. The ground trembled as the 4-armed brute charged forward, its heavy footsteps shaking the arena floor. The crowd roared, excited to see a weak human get crushed. Ethan Carter didn't move. He watched, calculated. The brute was fast for its size, but it was still big, heavy, and predictable. At the last second, Ethan dodged to the side. The brute's massive fist smashed into the ground, cracking the stone where Ethan had been standing. The crowd gasped. Ethan rolled away and pulled out his shock baton. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. The brute growled and swung again, but Ethan ducked and jabbed the baton into its ribs. Zap! The creature roared as electricity jolted through its body, but it wasn't enough to bring it down. It shook off the shock and swung all 4 arms at once. Ethan barely jumped back in time. Too strong. Too tough. If he tried to fight head-on, he wouldn't last long. He needed another way. The arena was full of traps, sharp spikes, burning pits, and even old weapons from past fights. The Dominion loved watching gladiators suffer. Ethan backed away, leading the brute toward a section of the floor covered in loose stones. The creature snorted in frustration and charged again. Just a little closer. Ethan waited until the last moment, then jumped aside. The brute's foot slipped on the loose stones, and it stumbled forward, straight into a row of metal spikes. Crash! The spikes pierced its thick hide, and the brute let out a deafening roar of pain. It struggled to get free, but Ethan didn't give it a chance. He ran forward and slammed his baton against its exposed neck, holding it there. The electricity surged through the brute's body. It convulsed, its eyes rolling back. Then, with a heavy thud, it collapsed. Silence. For a moment, the entire arena was still. Then the crowd exploded into cheers and gasps. No one had expected a human to win. Ethan stepped back, breathing hard. His heart pounded, his muscles ached, but he was still standing. A metallic voice echoed through the arena. Winner, Ethan Carter, the human. Ethan smirked. 1 fight down. More to go. A new enemy. Back in the underground fighters' barracks, Ethan sat on a small metal cot, wrapping a bandage around his arm. The fight had left him bruised, but he had survived. A deep voice rumbled from across the room. You fight like a scavenger. Ethan looked up. A massive alien warrior stood near the doorway, his yellow eyes glowing under the dim light. His skin was rough, gray, and covered in old scars. This was Torvax the Unbroken, one of the blood circuit's deadliest fighters. He had won countless battles and was known for breaking his opponents with his bare hands. Ethan stayed calm. I fight to win. Torvax studied him. You are not strong, not fast, but you think. That makes you dangerous. Ethan shrugged. I'll take that as a compliment. Torvax crossed his arms. You are here for something more than glory. I see it in your eyes. Ethan hesitated. He didn't trust anyone in this place, but something about Torvax felt different. He wasn't just another killer. I'm here for someone, Ethan admitted. A prisoner. Torvax nodded slowly. The Ilari princess. Ethan's eyes widened. You know about her. Torvax sat down on a bench. Everyone knows. The Dominion keeps her locked in the highest tower of Fortress Farkle. They fear what she represents. Ethan leaned forward. Do you know a way inside? Torvax grunted. There is only one way. The champion's reward. Ethan frowned. What's that? The Blood Circuit's final match, Torvax explained. Win every fight, become the champion, and the Dominion grants you a wish. Gold, freedom, or entry into the fortress. Ethan exhaled. So I have to keep winning. Torvax smirked. If you survive. A desperate alliance. Over the next few days, Ethan fought again and again. Each match was tougher than the last. He faced faster fighters, smarter opponents, and deadly traps. But he learned, adapted, used every trick he could. And he won. Each victory brought him closer to the final match, the champion's reward. But Ethan wasn't the only one watching. One night, as he rested in his barracks, a Dominion officer entered, flanked by armored guards. The room fell silent. The officer, a tall and cruel-looking alien with black armor, stared at Ethan. You are unexpected. Ethan remained calm. I get that a lot. The officer smirked. You fight well. Perhaps you are worthy of something greater than death. Ethan didn't answer. The officer leaned closer. The princess is not your concern. Leave this place, and I will see that you are rewarded. Ethan's jaw tightened. He had seen this kind of deal before, powerful people trying to buy their problems away. But he wasn't for sale. He met the officer's gaze, not interested. The Dominion officer's smirk disappeared. His eyes grew cold. Then you will die in the arena. With that, he turned and walked out. Ethan exhaled slowly. The Dominion knew. There was no turning back now. Final match awaits. The next morning, the arena was louder than ever. The final match had been announced. Ethan Carter versus Torvax the Unbroken. Ethan stood in the preparation room, tightening his gloves. He glanced at Torvax, who was also getting ready. You knew this would happen, Ethan said. Torvax nodded. Only one of us can win. Ethan took a deep breath. He had come too far to lose now. The princess was waiting. The metal gates groaned open, and the announcer's voice echoed through the arena. 2 warriors enter. One leaves as champion. Ethan stepped into the arena. Torvax followed. The fight of his life was about to begin. The crowd in the arena was louder than ever. Thousands of aliens, nobles, and Dominion officers gathered to witness the final match of the Blood Circuit. Above them, giant holograms displayed the names of the 2 fighters. Ethan Carter versus Torvax, the Unbroken. Ethan tightened his fists. His body ached from his past fights, but he ignored the pain. He had come too far to back down now. Across from him, Torvax stood tall, his yellow eyes locked on Ethan. He was the strongest fighter in the arena, undefeated for years. If Ethan wanted to win the champion's reward, he had to do the impossible, defeat Torvax. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. 2 warriors enter. One leaves as champion. A loud horn blasted, signaling the start of the fight. Torvax moved first. He charged like a beast, his heavy footsteps shaking the ground. His fists swung like hammers, aiming to crush Ethan in one blow. But Ethan was ready. He dodged to the side, barely escaping the attack. He struck back with a quick punch to Torvax's ribs, but it felt like hitting a wall. Torvax didn't even flinch. The giant warrior grabbed Ethan by the arm and threw him across the arena. Ethan crashed onto the ground, rolling to soften the impact. The crowd roared in excitement. Ethan pushed himself up, breathing hard. He couldn't beat Torvax with strength. He had to outthink him. Torvax charged again. This time, Ethan waited. Just before impact, he dropped to the ground and rolled between Torvax's legs. Torvax turned quickly, but Ethan was faster. He grabbed a handful of sand from the ground and threw it into Torvax's eyes. The warrior growled, stumbling back, trying to clear his vision. Ethan saw his chance. He jumped and kicked Torvax's knee, making the giant stagger. Then he struck the back of Torvax's head with his shock baton. The electricity surged through the warrior's body. Torvax roared in pain, but he didn't fall. Instead, he spun around and punched Ethan in the chest. Crack! Ethan flew backward, landing hard on the ground. He gasped for air. It felt like his ribs were broken. Torvax wiped his eyes and glared at him. "You fight well, human," he said, "but you cannot win." Ethan struggled to stand. His whole body hurt, but he refused to give up. "Then I'll go down fighting." Torvax nodded. "Good." Then he charged again. But this time, Ethan wasn't going to dodge. He ran forward as well, surprising Torvax. At the last second, he slid beneath him and struck his baton against Torvax's exposed neck. Zzz. A massive jolt of electricity shot through Torvax's body. His muscles locked up, and he collapsed to one knee. Ethan didn't stop. He grabbed a broken spear from the ground and held the sharp end against Torvax's throat. The crowd fell silent. Ethan had won. The announcer's voice boomed. The new champion, Ethan Carter, the human. The audience erupted in shock and applause. No human had ever won before. Ethan stepped back, lowering the spear. "It's over," he said. Torvax looked at him for a long moment. Then, to Ethan's surprise, he smiled. "You are strong," Torvax said, standing up. "Stronger than I thought." Ethan held out his hand. "I had a good teacher." Torvax stared at the hand. Then he grinned and shook it. The crowd cheered even louder. But Ethan didn't care about the victory. He had won the champion's reward. It was time to claim his prize. The wish that shocked the galaxy. Ethan stood before the High Warden of Fortress Varkle, a tall, armored alien with glowing red eyes. He sat on a throne-like chair, watching Ethan with interest. "You have earned the champion's reward," the warden said. "You may ask for anything." The room was filled with Dominion officials, all waiting to see what Ethan would choose. They expected him to ask for wealth, power, or freedom. Instead, Ethan spoke clearly. "I want Princess Alara of the Illyri Empire. Alive. Released. Now." The room fell into stunned silence. The warden's eyes narrowed. "That is a dangerous request." Ethan crossed his arms. "You said I could ask for anything." The warden hesitated. He had to honor the blood circuit's rules. The entire galaxy had watched Ethan win. If he refused, it would make the Dominion look weak. Finally, he sighed. "Very well." He motioned to his guards. "Bring the prisoner, the princess in chains." A few minutes later, the doors opened. A group of armored guards entered, and behind them was Princess Alara. She was tall and elegant, with silver blue skin and bright violet eyes. Her long, flowing hair was tangled, and her royal gown was torn. Heavy chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles. She looked up at Ethan, confusion in her eyes. "Who are you?" Ethan smiled. "Someone who's here to get you out." The guards unlocked her chains, and she rubbed her wrists, still wary. The warden sighed. "You have your prize, human. Now leave." Ethan nodded and turned to Alara. "Can you walk?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." "Good," Ethan said, "because we're not safe yet." He knew the Dominion wouldn't let them leave easily. The hardest part was still ahead. Escaping Fortress Varkle alive. Princess Alara's wrists still burned where the heavy chains had been, but she ignored the pain. She had no time for weakness now. The human before her, Ethan Carter, had won her freedom. He had defeated the blood circuit's deadliest fighters and demanded her release as his reward. But the hardest part was still ahead. Ethan glanced at her. "We need to move. Fast." Alara nodded, pushing aside her confusion. She had no idea why a human had come for her, but she wasn't about to waste the opportunity. Together, they stepped toward the exit, and then the alarms began to blare. Ethan cursed under his breath. Of course, they were never going to let us just walk out. Alara's heart pounded as dozens of Dominion soldiers stormed into the chamber, their weapons raised. A towering officer in black armor stepped forward, his red eyes glowing. The High Warden. He smirked. "Did you really think we would let you go so easily?" Ethan's fingers twitched toward his stolen shock baton, but he didn't attack. Not yet. Too many enemies. Too little time. Instead, he smiled. "You made a deal. I won." The whole galaxy saw it. The Warden's smirk widened. "Yes, you won your prize." He gestured at Alara. "She is free." Then his smile vanished. "But I never said you could leave." Ethan exhaled sharply. Should have seen that coming. Alara's violet eyes narrowed. "You dishonor your own laws." The Warden laughed. "The Dominion makes the rules, and we break them when necessary." He raised a hand. "Take them." The guards closed in. Ethan acted first. He grabbed a smoke grenade from his belt and threw it to the ground. A burst of thick gray smoke filled the chamber. "Run," he shouted. Alara didn't hesitate. She followed Ethan as they dashed toward the side doors. Behind them, the guards coughed and stumbled, momentarily blinded. But they wouldn't stay confused for long. Into the depths. Ethan led Alara through dark metal corridors, his mind racing. He had studied the fortress's structure before coming here. There was one way out, but it was dangerous. Alara ran beside him, keeping up despite her weakness. "Where are we going?" "The underground docks," Ethan said. "The Dominion keeps ships there. If we can steal one, we can escape." Alara's eyes widened. "Stealing a Dominion ship? That's your plan?" Ethan grinned. "Unless you have a better one." She didn't. Behind them, the alarms kept wailing. The guards had recovered and were chasing them. Alara's mind raced. "We won't make it in time. We need a distraction." Ethan fought for a second. Then he grabbed a small detonator from his belt. Alara's eyes narrowed. "What's that?" "Something fun." Ethan pressed the button. Boom. A massive explosion rocked the fortress, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Alara gasped. "What did you just do?" Ethan shrugged. "Before my final match, I set some charges in the arena. Just in case." Alara stared at him. "You are insane." Ethan grinned. "I prefer prepared. Now let's move." The betrayal. They finally reached the underground docks, a vast chamber filled with Dominion starships. The air smelled of fuel and burning metal. Ethan scanned the ships, then pointed at a sleek black fighter in the corner. That one. Fast, small, armed. But as they ran toward it, a group of guards stepped out from the shadows, weapons aimed at them. And in the middle stood Torvax the Unbroken. Alara's breath caught. "No." Ethan's hands curled into fists. "Torvax, what are you doing?" Torvax's yellow eyes were cold. "The Dominion gave me a choice." Alara realized it instantly. Betray them or die. Ethan clenched his jaw. "I thought you were different." Torvax sighed. "So did I." Then he attacked. Friend or foe? Torvax charged, his massive fists swinging. Ethan barely dodged in time. "Go!" Ethan shouted to Alara. "Get to the ship." Alara hesitated for a second, then she ran. She had to trust that Ethan could handle himself. Torvax threw another punch. Ethan ducked and countered with his shock baton, zapping Torvax's side. The big warrior growled in pain, but he didn't go down. Ethan backed away, breathing hard. "You don't have to do this." Torvax hesitated. Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt. Ethan saw his chance. The Dominion fear people like us. That's why they pit us against each other. But we don't have to play their game. Torvax's fists trembled. His eyes darted to the guards watching him. He knew Ethan was right, but he was afraid. Ethan took a deep breath. I didn't kill you when I had the chance. Are you going to kill me now? Torvax growled, then lowered his fists. I hate you, human. Ethan smirked. I'll take that as a yes. Torvax turned and punched the nearest guard. The room erupted into chaos. Escape. Alara reached the ship first. She jumped into the cockpit, frantically pressing buttons. The ship roared to life just as Ethan and Torvax fought their way toward it. Ethan leaped into the co-pilot's seat. Torvax hesitated. He looked back at the fortress, then at the ship. Ethan called out, coming or not. Torvax sighed. Then he jumped aboard. Alara launched the ship just as Dominion guards fired at them. The ship blasted through the docking bay doors, soaring into the night sky. They were free. But the Dominion wouldn't let them go that easily. A fleet of enemy ships rose from the planet below, chasing them. Ethan clenched his fists. Looks like we're not done yet. Alara smirked. I hope you can fly. Ethan grinned. Buckle up, princess. This is gonna be fun. The ship blasted into the stars, with the Dominion fleet hot on their trail. The stolen Dominion starship roared through space, its engines glowing bright against the darkness. Inside, Ethan, Alara, and Torvax braced themselves as the ship shook from enemy fire. Alara gripped the controls, her violet eyes scanning the screen. 5 Dominion warships were on their tail, their weapons locked onto them. This ship is fast, she said, but not faster than their missiles. Ethan buckled into the co-pilot's seat. Then we need a plan. Torvax, sitting behind them, crossed his arms. Simple. We fight. Alara shot him a look. Against 5 warships. Torvax smirked. I like the odds. Ethan grinned but stayed focused. We're not winning a direct fight, but we can outmaneuver them. Alara nodded. There's an asteroid field nearby. We can lose them there. Ethan checked the radar. That's risky. Alara glanced at him. So was entering the blood circuit to free a princess. Ethan chuckled. Fair point. Let's do it. She jerked the controls, sending the ship diving toward the asteroid field ahead. Into the storm. The Dominion warships pursued them, their lasers cutting through space. The stolen ship weaved between giant asteroids, dodging and twisting. Ethan's hands gripped the dashboard as the ship barely missed a massive rock. This is insane, he shouted. Alara smirked. I thought you liked taking risks. Behind them, one of the Dominion ships crashed into an asteroid, exploding into flames. Torvax laughed. That's one down. The remaining warships kept firing. Explosions rocked their ship as the shields struggled to hold. Ethan checked the systems. Shields at 40%. We won't last long. Alara's mind raced. If we can get through the field, we might be able to jump to hyperspace. Ethan nodded. Then we just have to survive a little longer. A desperate gamble. A Dominion warship moved in front of them, blocking their escape. They're cutting us off, Alara shouted. Torvax stood up, cracking his knuckles. Give me the guns. Ethan hit a switch, activating the ship's turret controls. Torvax grabbed the handles, his massive fingers moving with surprising skill. Let's see how the Dominion likes being hunted, Torvax growled. He fired the ship's cannons, sending a hail of plasma blasts toward the enemy. Boom! A direct hit. The warship's shields flickered. Ethan saw their chance. Alara, punch it. She accelerated, flying straight at the warship. Torvax's eyes widened. Are you trying to crash? Alara stayed focused. Trust me. At the last second, she rolled the ship sideways, slipping between the warship's twin engines. The Dominion pilots panicked, trying to turn. Too late. An asteroid smashed into their hull, tearing them apart in a massive explosion. Torvax whistled. "Remind me never to question you again, Princess." Alara smirked. "Smart choice." But the battle wasn't over yet. 2 more Dominion warships were still on their tail. The final move. Ethan's mind worked fast. He saw a massive asteroid ahead, spinning slowly. "I have an idea," he said, "but it's crazy." Alara rolled her eyes. "Of course it is. What is it?" Ethan pointed. "That asteroid. If we time it right, we can use its gravity to slingshot us away. The Dominion ships won't be able to turn in time." Alara hesitated. "If we mess up, we crash." Ethan grinned. "Then let's not mess up." Alara took a deep breath and angled the ship toward the asteroid. The gravitational pull increased, making the ship shake violently. The warships followed, their weapons still firing. "Hold on," Alara shouted. The ship spun around the asteroid, its speed tripling in seconds. The Dominion pilots realized too late what was happening. They tried to turn, but the asteroid's gravity pulled them in. The warship slammed into the giant rock, exploding in a fiery crash. Ethan, Alara, and Torvax watched the explosion from a safe distance. Alara let out a long breath. "That was close." Torvax smirked. "I enjoyed it." Ethan grinned. "Told you it would work." Alara glanced at him. "You didn't actually know it would work, did you?" Ethan shrugged. 50-50. She shook her head. "You are impossible." A new destination. With the Dominion warships destroyed, Alara activated the hyperdrive. "Where to?" she asked. Ethan thought for a moment. "We can't go anywhere the Dominion controls. They'll be looking for us." Torvax leaned forward. "I know a place. The Outer Rim. The Dominion's influence is weak there." Alara hesitated. "The Outer Rim is dangerous." Torvax grinned. "Not as dangerous as staying here." Ethan nodded. "Then let's go." Alara punched the coordinates into the system. The stars stretched into bright lines as the ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Dominion behind. For the first time in a long while, Princess Alara was truly free. But she knew this was only the beginning. The Dominion wouldn't stop hunting them, and Ethan Carter's fight was far from over. The stolen Dominion starship emerged from hyperspace into the dark emptiness of the Outer Rim. Ethan leaned back in his seat, letting out a breath of relief. "Well, that was fun." Alara shot him a look. "You have a strange idea of fun." Torvax chuckled. "I agree with the human for once. It was a good battle." Alara shook her head but couldn't help smiling. They were free. For the first time in years, she wasn't in chains, wasn't under the Dominion's control. But deep inside, she knew the fight wasn't over. Ethan must have sensed it too. He turned toward her. "They won't stop hunting you, will they?" Alara's expression grew serious. "No. As long as I'm alive, I am a threat to their rule." Torvax nodded. "The Dominion will never forgive us for what we've done. They will come." Ethan smirked. "Then we better be ready." A new hope. Alara opened the ship's comms. There was one last chance for safety. She sent a message across the Outer Rim's secure frequency. "This is Princess Alara of the Valteri Empire. I seek asylum. If anyone can hear me, please respond." Minutes passed, nothing but static. Then, a voice crackled through the speakers. "Alara, is that really you?" Alara gasped. "General Cal." Ethan leaned closer. "Friend of yours." Alara's eyes shone with hope. "More than a friend. He led my father's army before the Dominion took over. If anyone can help us, it's him." Cal's voice continued. "We thought you were lost, Princess. Where are you?" Alara gave the coordinates. Cal's response was quick. "Stay put. We're coming." Torvax crossed his arms. "Let's hope your general is trustworthy." Ethan smiled. "If he's not, we'll just do what we always do." Torvax smirked. "Fight." Ethan nodded. Fight. The final betrayal. An hour later, a fleet of ships appeared on the horizon. Alara's heart lifted. These were not Dominion warships. They were Volteri rebels. A sleek command cruiser approached, and a docking signal flashed on their screen. Alara turned to Ethan and Torvax. Stay ready, just in case. Ethan patted his sidearm. Always. The docking bay doors hissed open, and a tall, battle-worn warrior stepped forward. General Kale. Alara ran to him, and he bowed deeply. Your Highness, it is an honor. Alara placed a hand on his shoulder. I am no longer a princess, General. Just a fugitive. Cal's eyes burned with determination, not for long. The rebellion is strong. With you, we can rise again. Alara smiled. Then let's. Boom. The ship shook violently. Alarms blared. Ethan turned to the screen and froze. A massive Dominion dreadnought had just emerged from hyperspace. Alara's blood ran cold. No. How did they find us? Cal's expression darkened. We were betrayed. Torvax clenched his fists. Who? Alara's heart sank as she turned to Kale. The general lowered his head, guilt in his eyes. I had no choice, he whispered. The Dominion threatened to destroy all my people if I did not lead them to you. Ethan stepped forward, anger flashing in his eyes. You gave her up. Kale clenched his fists. I did what I had to, but I will not let them take her. Alara held back her fury. She wanted to hate Kale, but she understood. The Dominion forced people to make impossible choices, but she wasn't going back. Not now. She lifted her chin. Then let's fight. The battle for freedom. The dreadnought's cannons fired, sending energy blasts toward the rebel fleet. Explosions lit up the sky. Kale turned to his soldiers. Defensive formations. Protect the princess at all costs. Ethan and Torvax ran back to their stolen ship. Ethan jumped into the pilot's seat. Torvax, take the guns. Torvax grinned. My favorite part. The ship roared into battle, weaving between enemy fighters. Lasers filled the sky as the rebels fought back against the Dominion. Alara stayed on the command cruiser, issuing orders. This was her fight now. She was no longer a prisoner, no longer a fugitive. She was a leader. The rebellion would rise again, or die trying. The last gamble. Ethan's ship dodged Dominion fire, but the dreadnought was too powerful. Alara's voice crackled through the comms. Ethan, we need to destroy that ship. Ethan frowned. We don't have the firepower for that. Torvax grinned, not directly. But we can hit its engine core. Ethan's eyes widened. You're thinking suicide run. Torvax smirked. Unless you have a better idea. Ethan sighed. I hate that I don't. He angled the ship toward the dreadnought's rear engines. Alara's voice came through. Ethan, whatever you're planning, be careful. He grinned. When am I ever careful? Alara shook her head. That's what worries me. Victory or death. The Dominion saw them coming and sent swarms of fighters to block them. Torvax fired the cannons, taking out as many as he could. But there were too many, just as all hope seemed lost. Boom! Cal's cruiser fired a massive railgun blast, opening a path. Ethan pushed the throttle to max, speeding through the chaos. Almost there, he shouted. The engine core came into view. Torvax loaded the ship's last torpedoes. Firing. The torpedoes struck the core. A massive chain reaction exploded through the dreadnought. Flames engulfed the ship, tearing it apart. The Dominion was defeated. The rebellion had won. A new beginning. As the smoke cleared, Alara stood on the bridge, looking at the stars. Ethan and Torvax joined her. It's over, Ethan said. Alara smiled. No, it's just beginning. She turned to Kel, who stood silently, guilt in his eyes. Alara placed a hand on his shoulder. You made a mistake, but you fought for us. Stay and help us build something better. Kale bowed. I will. Torvax grinned. So, what now? Ethan smirked. Now, we change the galaxy. Alara nodded. Together. The stars stretched before them, full of endless possibilities. For the first time in years, hope burned bright.